Hello everybody, welcome back to another Overwatch League 2021 roster breakdown video. Today, we are taking a look at the Houston Outlaws. They finished the 2020 season with a record of 6-15 and a -18 differential. So same record as some of these other teams, but a worse differential. We'll talk about some of these other teams in the next couple of videos, London and Vancouver primarily, but Houston Outlaws, not a great team last season, a lot of main tank problems. Muma having injuries, not playing super well. Hydration, very good at communicating, didn't play main tank the best, so this is a season of change for the Houston Outlaws. Tons of new players, tons of new talent on this team. So let's talk about who they have and see what to expect from them. So let's start with the tanks. They have two new tanks this season. Both are Overwatch League rookies, and they are Jangu and Piggy, both from Talon Esports. The thing of note of these two tank players, being that they were on Talon Esports, Talon Esports spent a lot of the time that the San Francisco Shock were in Korea for Grand Finals. They were one of the teams that the Shock scrimmed pretty regularly, and Junkbuck, who, of course, used to be a coach for the San Francisco Shock, saw a lot of Jangu and Piggy, so he knows who these players are. He knows that they are very good players, and so he's kind of seen a lot of them. Jangu gives you a ton of potential at that main tank role. He's good at all four of the main tank heroes. He's good at the Orisa, the Rhine, the Winston, the Wrecking Ball. I don't think he's going to be the best main tank in the league. He is a significant improvement from what they had last season with Muma and Hydration. He is a much better player than both of them are. And you're getting the best out of his tank partner because you're pairing him with Piggy, who he already has experience playing with. You know this is a tank line that has pre-existing synergy. They spent 2020, at least the end of the second half of 2020, Jangu joining in June of 2020, the end of June. Piggy had been with them since January of 2020, so they played for about 6 months together before this, 5-6 months before this. Now they're once again playing together on the Houston Outlaws. I think this is a very good addition. Two very good players to have. Jangu, an interesting player, used to be a flex DPS player, so a lot like Bumper, who moved from flex DPS and even off tank to main tank. I'm really interested to see what Jangu does with the team. His play style. I'm not super familiar with how he plays. I have watched some contenders. Talon Esports, at least the Jangu Piggy era of Talon Esports, I did not watch a lot of, so I don't know a lot about these two players. But what I have seen, what I do know about them is that they are a significant upgrade over Muma. Now, whether or not Piggy is a significant upgrade over Meko has yet to be seen, and we probably won't see it for a while. Meko, very good player. Harsha had said in an interview with Yiska for GG Recon that they actually were considering bringing back Meko, but ultimately felt like Piggy was the safer option, the better option. Flex tank is a stacked role. There's a lot of really good flex tank players in the league, and a lot of really good flex tank players that aren't in the league, like Janu and Meko. So the fact that Piggy was the player they chose speaks pretty highly of him. You have to assume that if a player is picked up, when there's other players that are not picked up, who we know are very good, who we've seen them in the Overwatch League, we've seen them kind of play at the highest level, it says a lot about who those players are. So I think Piggy is a strong addition. I think he is going to be an interesting player to watch. This is the spot on this team that I'm looking out for the most, because in every other spot on this team, there is at least one veteran. This tank line is just these two players. If need be, of course, they can pull out Hydration and he can start playing tank if they really need him, if they're really desperate. But they have two rookies for their tank line. And they have two Korean rookies for their tank line when this team is still pretty mixed, all things considered. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between this tank line and the rest of this team, if the fans embrace these players. Houston Outlaws fans, I know there's always been a narrative that Houston Outlaws fans want an American team. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think they just want a good team. And when you have players on this team that are well-known American players, like Dante, KSF, Jake, I don't think they care as much, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Meko, Repel, Jexo were pretty well received last season, so I am interested to see what happens going forward with Django and Piggy. But they are the two players that I am most intrigued by on this roster, because they are the two who have the most necessity to succeed, because they're both rookies. We don't have a ton of information on them, and we haven't seen a ton of play from them in the past. So if they don't do very well, it'll be a pretty big blunder, and they'll have to keep looking to try to find some more talent somewhere out there in free agency. Next, I'm going to talk about the support line. Another interesting area, because another spot where they don't have any backups. They have one main support player and one flex support player. And their main support is Juby. Juby, formerly with a number of different teams. He played with Harrisburg University most recently. Before that, he played with Second Wind. He played with Maryville Saints when they were playing in Contenders. So he is not yet 18. He's only 17 right now, but he'll turn 18 before the season starts. He's going to be their main support player. Primarily, Lucio is his kind of big hero, but he also is known for his BAP and his Mercy as well. But I think he'll probably be the main BAP player for this team, which is something good to see. And you're pairing him with Crimzo, the former Dallas Fuel flex support, the Canadian player. So you have a Western backline. You have the best Western flex support. If I had to say who the best Western flex support is, I think it's Crimzo. And I don't think there's much of an argument for anybody else. I think Crimzo is really good. I think Crimzo has shown a lot of potential, and I think he was actually one of the bright spots of that Dallas Fuel team last season. So him on this roster, I think, is a very big addition. I think he's a great player. Is he one of the best flex supports in the league? No, but he is 100% an Overwatch League talent. He is someone who deserves to be in the Overwatch League. So this backline is also very interesting to me. I think that the thing that intrigues me the most about this roster is the tank line, because these are two players coming out of Korea who are kind of surprising in a lot of ways, because you have someone like Meko, who was on this team last season, who is not signed to a team now. John, who is not on the team right now. There's a ton of other main tanks out there that you could have gone after. I think Jonggu is a good bet. Obviously, you had the Mags of the world, and you had the Fuses of the world, but they got signed to teams. You know, there's other ones you could have tried to bring in from other parts of the league, but you have this tank line, which is all rookies and that are Korean players. You kind of expect a lot out of them. This support line, I think, is very interesting. I don't think this support line has a super high ceiling. I feel like this is going to be I think Crimzo is a solid middle of the pack flex support. I think Crimzo is good enough to make you a good, solid team. I don't know enough about Juby, but I don't get this feeling that this support line is going to be the greatest support line in the league. I don't think they need to be. I think they need to be able to support their tank line, and how well they do kind of dictates how well Juby and Crimzo are able to do. But we've seen Crimzo. We know what Crimzo can do. We know what he's capable of. We know he can hit very high highs. So seeing him on a team like Houston, where there is a lot of new pieces coming in, you have this feeling of security, this feeling of understanding how good this player is, and you kind of know what you're getting out of him. Juby is definitely a risk. He has not played on the Overwatch League level. He's only 17 at the moment. He'll be 18 by the time the season starts, of course. And then he's been on a lot of different Contenders teams, and none of them were ever really incredible. When he was with Maryville and when he was with Second Wind, they were good. They got top 4 in every single time that he played in Contenders in 2020. Twice with Maryville, 3 times with Second Wind. But then he goes to Harrisburg University, and they don't do a ton. But it's very different in collegiate. So who knows what it is really. So it is an interesting signing to have a collegiate main support player come into this team who is not yet 18. If you can hear something in the background, I'm very sorry, by the way. Anyway, not yet 18. We don't know a lot about him. But I think it's interesting. He's the only American rookie this season, to my knowledge. Still, I think he's the only American rookie. There may have been more that have somehow signed that I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure Juby's the only American rookie this season. And he's a very interesting player to follow because main support is a role that I think typically actually has been largely successful with Western players. It's one of the few roles where I think you find Western players find more success at times than Korean players. I mean, you look at it and you say, like, Lee Jae-gon is probably the best, or one of the best main supports in the league. He's definitely the best Korean main support. And you could argue that Moth, Funny Astro, FD God are mechanically better than he is. So I think it's interesting that we have another American main support, another Western main support in the league. I'm curious to see who he does. I don't think his ceiling is probably that high, at least not for this 2021 season. But I think it's interesting to see this support line, a fully Western support line. We don't see that very often in the league anymore just because of the nature of the position. You know, flex support tends to be a very heavy Korean-dominated position, but I think Crimzo is very good. I think he's the best Western flex support there is, and I think that this will be one of the most interesting teams to follow. And this specific back line will be very interesting to follow because it is a Western one. Let's move on to the DPS, though. I feel like all that can really be said about the support line is that there's a lot of potential there for Juby, but I don't really feel like he is going to be someone who comes in and dominates the league. I think it's going to be a solid support line, but I'm more focused on how good the tank line is for that team. But the DPS line is where it's really interesting because this is all veterans. There's not a single rookie on this DPS line, and they have 5 DPS players. Now, it's a lot, and I don't expect them all to get a lot of playtime, especially Jake, returning to the team he retired, he went to casting, comes back to play in a kind of player coach role. He is one of the players I'm most intrigued by because he is a very good player. When you look at what his kind of job is, he is the director of talent development as well as being a player. So he will be helping this team a lot, and he will be coaching on the sidelines with a lot of these other players. And so he might be a player sometimes, especially if they need a Junkrat, you're gonna pull out the Jake rat, right? Like you're gonna pull out Jake. But he might get some time where he gets to play, but I don't expect a ton of it. And it's fine if he doesn't play a lot. He doesn't need to play a lot. I think his role in this team is going to be primarily coaching. He's going to be kind of a mentor and influence, somebody who knows he knows a lot about the game. And so I think that seeing Jake enter this team is interesting. I don't expect a lot of playtime from him, so I don't really take a lot away from him. He can do what he needs to do. He'll have a role on this team. He'll have a place on this team. He might be good. He might be whatever for this team, but he's the leader, and I think that's really the main thing that you have for him. The real meat of this DPS lineup is going to be Dante. It's going to be Happy. It's going to be KSF and Hydration. These 4 are going to be the main players you're looking at. I think Dante, Happy are going to play a lot together. Dante is, of course, your Tracer, one of the best in the league. Definitely one of the best Western ones. He's also your Sombra. He's your Echo. Those are the 3 I think you can expect him to play a lot. Happy is going to be your Widow, your McCree. If you need a hit scan DPS player, Happy is going to be that player. Now, I'm kind of surprised Happy signed with Houston. I know there's the rumors about Happy going to Houston and Nero also going to Houston, and then the Shock came in late and kind of gave him another offer, and he went to join the Shock because he had an opportunity basically to find success there and possibly win, which the chances of that happening at Outlaws a little bit less likely, but still a very good signing for Happy. And you have Piggy and Jonggu, so at least there's other Korean players on the team, and you have Junkbuck and you have Harsha, who at least know some Korean. So it is an interesting signing, but he's a very good player, and he's going to be your main kind of sniper hit scan specialist. Then you have KSF and hydration, and between those two, you're going to see, I think, a lot of the main primary switching between the two. Hydration, I think, is going to be when they need a Doomfist, a Pharah. I think that's hydration's main area. When they need a Genji, I think that's where you'll see a lot of KSF. Now, if you have been around long enough, you would know that I am the self-proclaimed conductor of the KSF hype train. I tend to think, and I do in fact believe, that I am KSF's biggest fan. There is nobody in the Overwatch League community, except for me, maybe his family or his girlfriend. I think he has a girlfriend. I don't know. Anyway, I should know because I am the leader of his fan club, the KSF hype train. I am the conductor of the hype train. So of course I want to see a lot of KSF because I do think KSF is a very good player. He's a very good flex player, and he's a very good kind of position player. Dante's hit scan, his like McCree's, his Widows are not that good, right? Like that's not his specialty. He's known for his Tracer, his Sombra, his Echo. He's really good at that. Happy is a really good sniper player. If they, for some reason, find themselves in a meta where they need a second hit scan snipery player, KSF has played the Widowmaker, the Ashe, the McCree, that kind of role at a pretty high level in the past. He played it for the LA Valiant back in 2019 when they were finding success, late in the season when they beat the Vancouver Titans in Stage 3, and they were kind of starting to get better once they added Fact Fiction and Shax, and the team kind of started to build some momentum. I thought that's when KSF kind of showed that he has a ton of flexibility. So he is, I think, a very important piece of this team. He also, I think, is probably the best Hanzo on this team. I think Happy's got a pretty nasty Hanzo as well. But if you're running double sniper, Hanzo, Widowmaker, you're going to have KSF in there. So I think there's a lot of switching that we're going to see between specifically Dante, Happy, and KSF. I think hydration will be a very good, flexible piece for this team. But I don't think he's going to be a starter in a lot of situations. I think he has a lot of really good heroes, and if they need a Doomfist, they need a Pharah, I think that's when hydration comes in. Maybe the Genji, but you have Dante and KSF who both also play Genji. I think KSF's Genji of the three is probably the one we'll see the most. I don't know if it's necessarily the best. I do think KSF has a good Genji. But it's not necessarily that KSF is the best Genji. It's just that more than likely if Genji's meta, Genji is going to be paired with a Tracer or a Sombra, something that Dante would be playing. So I think a lot of what we're going to see is Dante, Happy, KSF, the occasional hydration coming in for specific hero pools. And I also think hydration is going to be a really good flexible player, because if they need him to play, say, Zarya, well, he can play Zarya, because we saw him play it back in the past. Or he played main tank if they really need a second main tank for a meta. Hydration can play that if he is, proficient at it. And I think that's really what hydration brings to this team, is he just brings so much flexibility that he can just kind of tie everything together, because you don't necessarily need to have a bunch of different players in different roles. Because hydration has played in so many different roles at so many different levels that he's actually a very good player. And I think that is one of the things that really stands out to me about this DPS lineup. Like, yeah, there's 5, but really they all have a place, and I can see, even though some are definitely going to play more than others, I can see a role for everybody. Jake's the coaching type of guy. Dante, Happy, KSF, kind of your main 3. Hydration is your kind of niche player, comes in when you need him. He's your super flexible guy who can play the different roles that you need him in. So I think this is an interesting team. I think this is a really good lineup and a really good set of players. The biggest concern for this team, obviously, is can they perform with this new coaching staff, which I think they can. I think having Junkbuck join this team is a huge addition. He's coached a lot of these Team USA guys before. I mean, he coached KSF with Team USA in 2019. I think Hydration was on that team committee. Dante was also on that team committee, though didn't make the final team. And then you also have, experience with some of these top-level players scrimming against the likes of the Happies. He coached the San Francisco Shock. So he also, I think he was with them when Dante was still there. So he's coached Dante in the past. Harsha spent last season coaching Dante. So I think this is a very solid team. And I think this is a team that has this team will not be as bad as they were last season. There is no way this Houston Outlaws team will be as bad as they were last season. They had they had growing pains with the roster, with them running players. They probably shouldn't have been running them. They should have had different people in, but they had, they put in the wrong people. I don't think that's going to be a problem this time around. I really don't. I think that they have found, I think, the players that they need. They have found a very strong coaching staff, and I think this team is going to take a huge step forward this season, and they're going to be significantly better than the team that we saw from them in both 2019 and in 2020. So those are my thoughts on the Houston Outlaws. I'd love to hear your own thoughts on this team in the comments down below. I know I love the NYXL. They're my boys. That's my team. I've always been a big fan of Houston. I was a big fan of the LA Valiant until, everything happened with that team. So I think I might be going back. Outlaws, they might be my number 2 team now. They brought in KSF. I've always liked the colors. Outlaws, I'm feeling the energy this season. I'm feeling good about the team this season. So I'm excited to see what happens. But let me know your thoughts, like I said, in the comments down below, on my opinions, on your own opinions of the Houston Outlaws. Anything of that sort, I would love to hear from you in the comments. But that is all from me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want more content like this in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But I'm going to get out of here. Thank you once again. Hope you are all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.